Are you trying to get your head around biodiversity for your GCSE Biology exam? Yeah, you're not the only one. But don't worry, in the next few minutes, we're going to break down absolutely everything you need to know from AQA section 4.7.3. We'll cover the core ideas, the big global picture, the whole thing. Let's get right into it.
So, let's kick things off with a pretty big question. Why should we even care about all the millions of other species on our planet? It's so easy to just see this as another topic to memorize for an exam, right? But as you're about to find out, the answer to this question is, well, it's absolutely crucial for our own survival.
Here's the game plan for this explainer. First, we'll nail down what biodiversity actually is. Then, we'll look at the huge impact we're having on it. After that, we'll zoom out to see the global consequences of our actions, and we'll wrap up by looking at what we can actually do to help. It's a clear path from the problem right through the solutions.
Okay, let's dive into part 1. What exactly is biodiversity? Seriously, getting this definition right is the key that unlocks this entire topic for your exam.
So, here it is. This is the definition you need to remember. Biodiversity is the variety of all the different species of organisms on Earth, or you could be talking about it within a specific ecosystem. So think about everything, from a huge oak tree in a forest to the tiny fish in a pond, and even the bacteria that you can't even see. It's basically the sum of all life in one place.
So why is this variety such a big deal? Well, biodiversity is what makes ecosystems stable. You can think of it like a safety net. The more different species you have, the less they all have to depend on any single one for food or shelter. If one species disappears, the whole thing doesn't collapse. And that resilience is so important because at the end of the day, our own future, our food, our clean air, our water, it all depends on these stable ecosystems.
All right, now we know what biodiversity is and why it's so vital. But that leads to a pretty tough question. What's the single biggest threat it faces? Well, as we're about to see in this next section, the answer is us.
This slide really gets to the heart of the problem. The human population is growing, and fast, and at the same time, our standards of living are rising around the world. Now that's great for people, but it creates a massive problem for the planet. It means we're using more resources, we're burning more energy, and we're creating way more waste than ever before in history. All that demand puts a huge strain on the natural world. And all that waste, it has to go somewhere, right? As you can see, this leads to pollution pretty much everywhere. We get water pollution from things like sewage and chemicals from factories. We get air pollution from smoke and acidic gases. And of course, land pollution, as we just bury mountains of our trash in landfills. Every single one of these things directly hurts wildlife and just chips away at that biodiversity we were talking about. Now, this slide shows a fantastic real-world example of the kind of conflicts that come up. On one hand, we need compost to grow more food for our growing population. And peat from these bogs is a really cheap and easy option. But, on the other hand, these peat bogs are incredibly rare habitats. They're vital for all sorts of unique species. So when we destroy them for compost, we don't just wipe out that biodiversity, we also release massive amounts of carbon that were stored in the peat, which makes global warming worse. It's a perfect example of those tricky choices between what humans want and what the environment needs.
Okay, on to section 3. So far, we've seen how our actions can cause local problems, like pollution. But now let's zoom out and look at the much bigger picture. What are the global consequences when you add all of these actions together?
One of the most obvious global impacts is deforestation. I mean, we are talking about enormous areas of forest, especially in places like the Amazon, just being completely cleared at a shocking rate. And as you can see here, it's not just about chopping down trees for wood. Huge areas are cleared to make space for cattle ranches and for rice fields, or to grow massive crops like palm oil, which we then use to make biofuels. Now, that deforestation plus all the fossil fuels we burn leads us to the biggest threat of all, global warming. This slide breaks it down perfectly. First, gases like carbon dioxide and methane build up in our atmosphere. The best way to think of them is like a blanket wrapping around the Earth. They trap the sun's heat and stop it from escaping. This causes the planet's average temperature to rise, and that has huge biological consequences. We're talking melting ice caps, more extreme weather, and habitats changing so quickly that species just can't adapt in time.
And this is a really important point that the AQA specification wants you to know. The idea of global warming isn't just someone's opinion, it is a scientific consensus. What that means is that it's built on thousands and thousands of different scientific studies, and all of them have been rigorously checked by other experts. That's a process called peer review. So for your exam, you need to remember, this is evidence-based science. It's not just a belief.
So far, I know.
This has all been a little bit bleak, but it is definitely not the end of the story. For our final section, let's switch gears and look at the positive side. What can we actually do to help protect and maintain biodiversity?
These are the key programs you should definitely be aware of. We're talking about things like breeding programs in zoos, which help save species that are right on the brink of extinction. We're also working to protect and regenerate those rare habitats we talked about, like the peat box. In farming, even simple things like putting back field margins and hedgerows can create these vital corridors for wildlife. And then, on a global level, the big focus is on reducing deforestation and CO2 emissions. While on a personal level, even something as simple as recycling your waste can make a real difference.
And that brings us to the end. We've defined biodiversity, we've looked at our impact, and we've seen both the pretty devastating consequences and the hopeful solutions. So, I'll just leave you with this final thought. We have all these potential solutions right in front of us, from breeding programs to big international agreements. The real question is which of these are going to be the ones that actually define the future of our planet. It's a huge question and one that's definitely worth thinking about. Good luck with your revision.